What's next? I've got
Let's
a
talk
few more
Apple
minutes
Cup.
in me. Apple Cup.
Let's talk Apple
Let's
Cup.
do it.
So Apple
There you
Cup
go.
happened, and it was nuts. Also, this game went final right around the same time as the Iron Bowl. 24-21, Washington wins it on a walk-off field goal. They complete a 12-0 season for the first time. Completed an undefeated regular season for the first time since 1991. That last drive, guys. It's 4th and 1 deep in Washington territory. Kalen DeBoer lines up to go for it. They fake out everybody in the stadium, including the cameraman,
The
with
huevos.
play action pitch to Rome Odunze, who runs around the outside for about 30 yards to pick up the first down. I thought that he handed it off inside and got stuffed, and Washington State was about to get the ball in plus territory, and that's not what happened. Rome Odunze gets the ball. I'm starting to think that we were highlighting the wrong Heisman candidate this whole time, guys, because Rome Odunze, 2 more touchdowns through the air today, both amazing plays. He's starting to make a case that he might be, not only the best wide receiver in the country, but maybe the best player in the country as he continues to lead this Washington offense through some really dark times recently. They have not put on the best performances down the stretch. They're not the offense that we saw at the beginning of the year, but they're still winning games, and they're still figuring out a way to get through this Pac-12 schedule undefeated. They earned their trip to Las Vegas next week to take on Oregon, but it was not without a lot of difficulty today. Washington State gave them all they can handle. Cam Ward basically outplayed Michael Penix Jr. Michael Penix should have had a couple more picks and one on the second to last play of the game that just dropped right into the hands of the Washington State defender that he dropped. But
he threw another one. He threw another one a couple plays earlier where he threw one kind of short in the end zone, and I don't know what the Washington State defender was doing, but it looked like he ran into the ball and just didn't realize he could pick it off.
Yeah,
like I don't know what he was doing or thinking, but it probably surprised him that he threw that bad of a pass. And I don't want to totally just take that over, but I don't think that Washington has looked near good enough recently to warrant some of the top 4 consideration. And I understand they're undefeated and they won games. You got to give them credit for winning games. You can't take that away from them. But I mean, maybe this is a question for the preview next time, but what do we really think about next week? Because I texted y'all, I think Oregon's about to stomp Washington in this conference championship game. Oregon's looked really, really good the last several weeks. They've been blowing teams out, including shared opponents with Washington. And Washington's kind of just finding a way to survive. And that's not to take away from Odunze. That's not to take away from, what Penix can do. But I haven't seen the same kind of offense to just, throw it down there, score, close to 40 in the first half type of offense in a long time.
So, question from the peanut gallery, because I did not get to watch any of the Apple Cup until the last 2 drives. The rush yards and pass yards in the graphic should be switched. Is that right? I'm assuming we didn't have quarterbacks throw for.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, because Trey said that Ward outdueled Penix, and I was like, that doesn't seem like much of a flex based on
that. Yes, that should be
okay.
pass on top. Yeah,
just making sure.
Yeah.
My only comment on the Apple Cup, I guess, is twofold. First of all, yes, you absolutely have to give credit to Washington for winning games, just like you have to give credit to Texas for winning games, just like you have to give credit to Alabama. But the play calling on that last drive for Washington, the 4th and 1 aside, all right, that one worked. But then after they got inside field goal range, why on earth did the Huskies keep throwing the ball?
Run the ball.
All you needed, it was like Kalen DeBoer was like literally testing fire. Let's see how close I can get to not going to the playoffs and survive. It didn't make any sense to me.
He throws the 2 phantom interceptions, and then on that 3rd down, he gets sacked. He loses massive field position, made that field goal way harder than it needed to be.
Yeah, the sack.
You could have just handed the ball off, said, we're not going to score on this one. Maybe if you score it through, you can kind of, find your way through a little lane and score. But right now, just go down, 2 hands on the football, put this thing in the middle. Let's make this thing an easy kick. Mitch, I'm with you, man. That was confusing play calling. And I mean, at the end of the day, you still scored 24 total against Washington State, who has not exactly been a killer defense. And has put up, they've let up some big numbers. Look, man, I'm not trying to be that guy, but I just don't think Washington has what it takes. I think that something went wrong. They have it in there. We saw it at the beginning of the season, but they've completely lost it since the Oregon game. And it almost felt like that Oregon game was their season for some reason because they stopped competing after that game.
They rise and fall, it seems like, with the level of their opponent. And I mean, that is that may not be an accurate assessment at all. We're looking at a 12-game sample size and they're undefeated. So, but at the same time, it's like outside of the non-conference schedule, they've kind of played right there with their opponent, whether they're a good team or not. Trey, listen, as you and I were leading the Cam Ward parade a year too early, I feel like we're going to be the guys that, break out Cam Ward's name or maybe Jake Dickert's name in a sports trivia contest later on in life. The results just didn't end up being there, but I think sometimes the real prize is the friends we made along the way, and I feel that in my heart about this Wazoo team. 5-7 is just not indicative of what either of us kind of thought this team would be, what we thought Cam Ward would be. But I think we take some fond memories into the next stage of life.
So here's my counterpoint to all that, and I hear what you guys are saying.
Beautiful eulogy, man. Come on.
Here's my counterpoint, though. It is probably more difficult to go undefeated in the Pac-12 for whatever reason than almost any other conference on God's green earth.
That's pretty fair.
It is the first time that any team has gone undefeated through a season, not just a conference season, but an entire season in the Pac-12 conference since 2010. Oregon did it on the way to the BCS National Championship game appearance where they lost to Auburn. So it has not been done in quite some time, and Washington was able to find a way.
And it won't ever happen again.
And it will not ever happen again, as we are still watching. It's ticking down to halftime here in the last Pac-12 After Dark game, and it has been a Pac-12 After Dark game with a scoop and score called off, a lot of fumbles, 2 or 3 picks, and a kickoff return touchdown already, 13-7 Cal up. But, man, you got to give them credit for winning. You're absolutely right, Mitch. They haven't been doing it pretty. They've been playing some tough opponents recently. I don't want to make excuses for Washington. They don't need me to carry water for them, but it's going to be really easy. And yeah, Andrew, you're absolutely right in the chat. It is very hard to go undefeated in the SEC too. It's just something weird happens in the Pac-12 where all these teams are so comparable, and it's very difficult it's difficult to go undefeated in any conference, but it just hasn't happened in the Pac-12 in a really long time. So, yeah, Washington did it. They're going to have to figure out a way to beat Oregon next week, guys. Right now, where would you set the line on that game if you were the odds maker?
I'd put Oregon -4 just because they've looked better. And I realize it's maybe not entirely fair because they did lose earlier in the season. But, I mean, if you've watched football the last week or so, the last month or so, the last couple months, so I think Oregon just looks like the far and away better team. They're better in all phases. Bo Nix is, outclassing the rest of the country. We'll talk about that in a second, but Bo Nix is looking extremely good. I think I'd put Oregon as a pretty moderate. I wouldn't put them at like a touchdown favorite, but I'd give them 4, maybe 5 points.
I'd say Oregon -3.5 for all the same reasons that Garrett said.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I'm doing a quick search to see if anybody has a line on that yet. Our friends at MyBookie did not. I'll keep looking there and see if I can find that throughout the rest of the show. But it'll be fascinating to see when that drops tomorrow. But again, Washington wins the Apple Cup 24-21. It's going to be fascinating to see how that game turns out next week. Oregon versus Washington in Vegas on Friday night.
Gracious, how about